The Kuppersmith Project, the practical renovation of an 85-year-old home, is halfway complete, but there are still tons of details to tackle, from landscaping and utilities to wood floors and countertops. Hey, don't go anywhere. This home is 85 years old, and we're midway through a major renovation on it. We call it the Cuppersmith Project, after the family who lived here for more than a half a century. And so far, the transformation is going great. We've added new spaces, and we're making all of it, old and new, more energy efficient and functional for today's family. Last week, we started digging into the finished look and feel we wanted for the inside, and now it's time to do the same for the outside. Now, this is some old, worn-looking wood. Well, it should be old-looking. It's 85 years old. It's been out in the weather, and this used to be the beam that supported the sunroom that we had to remove in order to build the new master bedroom addition. Now, we wanted to save every little piece of the old wood we could for this very reason, so that we could use it wherever possible, so that we can make the new construction look as close to original as possible. And this will match the stoop over the front door very closely. Now, here's another feature right by the front door. This is a little wing wall that's basically an extension of the wall brick, exact radius as the front door, and we'll be creating a little cast stone piece right on the top, again, to blend the old with the new as close as we can. Foundation vents. We could have gone with a cheap aluminum or some type of metal. This is actually cast iron, very heavy. We've got a little painting to do on it, but once that's in place, it'll look like it's been there for all 85 years. But one thing we really got to start paying attention to right now is all of our landscaping. To get that ball rolling, landscape designer Paul Fontenot has worked out a plan that will give the landscape as much character as the house itself.
You know, good landscaping should always complement, not overwhelm the house, and we're having some nice focal points with some feature trees, flowering trees. Considering the views inside looking out, which is always important. A lot of people only think about it from dressing up the outside, but it should be a really nice mix of flowering, deciduous, and evergreen plants.
Yeah, it looks
and
awesome.
You can see here where we've got a nice lawn area kind of wrapping around the corner lot. So we have a nice view from the street, and then once you turn into the driveway, we have this nice lush planting, so that really whenever you pull in, you have a great feeling that you're surrounded by these nice plantings.
Well, the front of the house is a lot of times for the neighbors and others, but the backyard is for the real family-friendly aspect of this house is going to come together. Let's take this back here and take a look at that.
Paul's plan for the front should make the neighbors happy, but I also wanted to see what he has planned for the backyard.
Well, Paul, I was real curious of how you were thinking about this area. You know, it's not a giant area, but could be a pretty nice area for some kids to play, and I know we want some type of entertainment area out there. How did you address this overall?
Our goal was to kind of make this part of the yard and this courtyard, which is essentially going to be mostly hardscape, flow together and function as one yard. You know, the goal of the backyard being, you know, the backyard's your personal, you know, paradise, and your downtime is really an extension of your living space. Yeah. Once we get the hardscape elements in place, then we need to begin our trenching and laying out of the sprinkler systems, as well as putting in the underground wiring for our outdoor lighting system.
Oh yeah, the lighting, that's a whole nother thing. Now we got a whole nother set of plans to go through, don't we?
Exactly.
One of the first elements to go into this backyard isn't on Paul's plan, because it isn't landscaping. This pad is for our Generac whole house standby generator. This 20 kilowatt generator runs on natural gas and is connected to the home's electrical system through an automatic transfer switch. Once the connection of our new electrical service is completed by the utility company, the Generac system will monitor it. And if utility company power is interrupted, the switch will flip over to the generator and simultaneously start the unit. These systems can easily be added to existing houses, but it really makes sense to include one if you're building a new home or doing a major renovation like this one.
The folks that end up buying this house will really appreciate the peace of mind that comes along with having a standby generator. Now, this house is in an older neighborhood, which means all of the power is overhead, which makes it a lot more susceptible to wind and limbs blowing down and interrupting the service, but they won't have to worry about it with this. Also, we're in Mobile, Alabama, right on the Gulf Coast where hurricanes are a fact of life, and that can certainly disturb the power coming into a home. So this is a great solution for that. And speaking of solutions, let's see what Joe has for this week's Simple Solution.
Whenever a garage door is left open, it seems like the wind blows leaves and debris and making a mess of the floor. Now, if you have a leaf blower, you can just blow them out. But if you don't, you might still be able to blow them out if you have a wet dry vacuum. But the first thing you do is disconnect the motor unit from the collection tub and then switch the hose from the vacuum section to the blowing side of the motor. Almost every shop vac has that option. And then simply turn it on and blow the leaves out of the garage. You can see, even with a small unit like this, it provides a pretty powerful stream of air, and it blew out the leaves just in a few seconds. Now, this is good not only for blowing leaves out of garage, but also for blowing grass clippings off of sidewalks or dry, and also for blowing clean your lawn and garden equipment like this tractor here.
While the plan for the outside decor here on the Kuppersmith Project is coming together, the plan for the inside is already being implemented. Those great Marilat cabinets that we've been installing for the past few weeks are now getting some final touch-up. We're also starting to add the hardware, and it seems to be the perfect fit because the brushed nickel finish adds interest without distracting too much from the cabinets. But the real focal point will be the countertops, and they're arriving now. To it.
Now, even though the cabinets have been in for a while and all the cabinetry's finished, it still doesn't look like a finished kitchen, but it will in just a few hours now that the granite's coming in. Now, this is a Golden Hill granite from Denova, and of course the guys are bringing it in piece by piece, getting the biggest piece out of the way first. Then they'll seam it all together, and within just a few hours, this place will really look like a kitchen.
The thing people don't often realize about granite is that although it's very, very hard, it's also brittle. So moving it is a delicate process, even though it's some outrageously heavy stuff. But once it's on the broad, flat surface of the cabinet, it's fairly safe. Then the crucial lineup process begins. Making sure all the margins are even and the seams are perfectly aligned. The smaller pieces for the drop zone and coffee bar are the same Golden Hill granite we used on the island, but the counters on the back wall flanking the stove are Denova's quartz product in a Tuscan gray. This change in color and texture should add some really nice interest to this kitchen.
Woo! Here in the master bathroom, the progress is a little bit behind the rest of the house, but we're catching up pretty quickly. Mike's in the process of putting all of our polished nickel hardware on. That way we can get our countertops in place. And over in the shower here, a lot of work to be done here. We finished all of the Dura-Rock cement backerboard up on the walls, but here we have to create a curb and a drain pan that'll have concrete in it, sloping towards the drain, of course, as well as ceramic tile. That'll be happening very, very soon. We also have our crown molding up in here. Most of that is all complete. And so once these few things get completed and we get the tile down, then the painters can get in here and make this look a lot closer to being finished than it looks right now.
Since the granite guys are here today, they'll get the first shot at bringing this bathroom up to speed. They're using the same Golden Hill stone for the vanity tops that we used in the kitchen, each with a cutout for an oval under-counter mounted sink. Meanwhile, in the older part of the house, we're finally getting rid of that steel furnace grate that has dominated the stair hallway for so long. The void in the floor is framed up and then covered with 3/4 inch plywood to bring it up flush to the subfloor. Then they remove the existing hardwood floor between the patch area and the adjacent wall and stairs. Once the spot is sealed with builder's felt, this allows them to fill back in the void with heart pine flooring.
I need one exactly 34 9/16.
Working from the wall to the stairs and back again.
I think it's gonna turn out good if we get a good finishing job on it. A lot of them, some like these with the tar on it, they were in the kitchen and they didn't get refinished again like the other wood did. So, by the time they come through here and sand it all, they make it all the same thickness. So we should be good.
Once the patch is complete, all of this will be refinished with the rest of the floors, hopefully leaving no evidence of what it looked like before.
Sweet!
While these guys wrap up this, check out what Jody has for this week's Best New Product.
Patio pavers are a nice addition to your outdoor living space, but sometimes these types of pavers are not perfect for your application. Well, you might want to consider these. Now, these are recycled pavers that are made out of car tires and truck tires made by Enviro Tile. And the nice thing about it is, take a look at this, all of the different designs that you get to choose from. These look like stone pavers. You have a little more ornamental design on those back there. These look like brick pavers. But what I like best about these tiles is how easy they are to install. Now, they actually clip together with this patented little clip right here. And I'm going to show you just how easy it is to install. Now, I've got one down here on the ground. I'm going to take this one. Now, on the back side, you can see where it's got the 4 grooves on each side. And what I'm going to do is lock those into place right next to each other. So I'm going to line this up. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure on that. I'm actually just going to kind of step on it and lock it into place. You see how easy that is? Now, the nice thing about it is underneath here, there's actually a channel that allows the water to flow underneath it, so you're not getting trapped water underneath. They won't break or crack, and the nice thing is you can put these on your balcony, you can put them on your patio, you can put them on your deck. So these could go anywhere, and you could have it up in no time and really transform the look of your outdoor living space.
After months of this front yard looking like a construction site, it's time to start making it look like a yard again. And our excavation pro, Wesley May, is back to start moving dirt for us.
Now, this is the first step in implementing our landscape plan that Paul put together for us, is making sure everything is graded properly so that when it does rain, the water goes where it needs to go. Now, the driveway will be right in here, so any water that hits here will need to go to the front. Any water that hits over here will need to go to that side so that it's not trapped against the house. And then the real tricky part is making sure that all of the water that falls from the roof here is able to navigate right through that gate. So Wesley has his work cut out for him.
But if anyone can get it done, this is the guy. The tractor almost becomes an extension of his hands. If you're watching casually, it looks just like he's driving back and forth, but there's no wasted effort here. He pushes a pile of dirt into place in one direction, then gracefully smooths it out going in the opposite way. Then he can lay out the location of the driveway from Paul's plan and begin cutting out its profile. He'll have to remove several inches of dirt to accommodate the large concrete and paver drive, so this will take a little time. Speaking of pavers,
we probably need, depending on the product you decide, probably 7 to 8 inches below finished grade is what needs to be excavated out.
Really?
Yes, sir. You need 4 inches of base,
yeah. And
1 of sand, and depending on the size, the thickness of the paver, 2 to 3 inches. So you're at 7 to 8 inches below finished grade.
So I guess I just need to get my guy here to establish the basic footprint of that, and then tell him down 8 inches, 7 inches.
7 to 8 inches, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, awesome.
so as soon as Wesley finishes his work in the front, he begins digging out the area for the paver patio in the backyard. In the front yard, Mike Thompson, our concrete contractor, and his crew begin laying out the forms for the drive in the newly excavated area.
Awesome. Dig that out and form it.
And this is a little more complicated than just some stakes and a few 1x4s.
Well, I finally made the decision on what pavers we're going to use for the patio out back, and the pavers will also be used for decorative borders going around the driveway, as well as kind of breaking up the expanse a little bit. But I tell you, when you're using something like this in a large slab like this, it takes a lot of forming. Here's a guy that's going to take care of it. Now, Mike, this is going to be the paver, and of course you're going around the perimeter with it. I know you're digging the footing for it now, but you also have all of these like spokes in a wheel that you're putting in throughout the slab. How will you actually form that so that you can pour the concrete and then we can put these in later?
Well, we're just gonna cut our boards, just rip our boards so that they allow enough room to put some sort of a sand or something to that effect underneath the paver. And the concrete can just flow right under that board. And so the top of it will be the concrete and the bottom of it will be our footing, and then they'll come back and put these in.
So basically around the perimeter and then all of the areas in the middle, they're like little troughs.
That's right, that's right.
So you're having to pour the concrete and then it goes down.
And it'll go in underneath that board.
And that's going to take you a while then, because there's a lot of,
there's a lot of work there. That's
there's
right.
a lot of pieces
there's
like
a lot
that.
of work there, yes,
and then,
sir.
of course, later on, instead of mortaring these, the paver guys are just going to set them in locking sand, which
That's
I
right.
thought was pretty good, because you always see when they have these mortared in, they always break out.
That's right.
Like.
So when the concrete moves, that moves and gives a little bit, and then you don't see the cracks.
Right, I got you. Okay, all right. Well, you got a lot of work to do here and everything. It looks like the weather's not cooperating.
Yeah, it's not
too well.
cooperating at all, but we'll make it work.
All
It's
right.
Mobile.
Yeah, that's true. It is going to rain just about every other day. But
That's right.
anyway, good luck on everything. We look forward to seeing the
All right,
concrete,
great.
especially the dyed concrete that you're
Yeah,
putting
that's
in.
right.
That's going to look great.
Thanks.
While Mike keeps working on the forms for our colored concrete, let's talk about another color, light green.
So much of thinking green starts with understanding the terminology. Common words and phrases include sustainability, energy efficiency, and renewable resource. Another you often hear is post-consumer recycling. You often see these words on various consumer goods. This is one of the greenest forms of recycling out there, because this is material that has served its useful purpose in a home or business, such as paper, cardboard, and aluminum, and is diverted from going to the landfill. And you might be surprised at how many things can be made from post-consumer recyclables. Fences, playground equipment, carpet, even roofing shingles can be created from what years ago would have wound up in the garbage. But to get to that post-consumer point, people need to make the simple decision to recycle at home and look for the post-consumer label when purchasing new items. It's just bare ground, but it looks pretty darn good to me now that it's all clean and nicely graded. And with the heavy rain that we're expecting this afternoon, we're having to spread a little bit of hay along the edge there to make sure all of our good topsoil doesn't wash away. But after we get a little break in the weather, we'll be able to complete all of our concrete pours, the big circular driveway out front, the 3 little levels of our breezeway, and of course our driveway. After that, we'll be ready for our irrigation system to be installed, and then we'll be putting in place over 2,500 plants and a handful of trees that'll turn all this bare ground into somewhat of a very lush yard. I can't wait to see that happen. Hey, I hope you're enjoying seeing the Kuppersmith Project come together. We're having a lot of fun putting it together, and I hope you'll join us next week right here on Today's Homeowner. I'm Danny Lipford. We'll see you then. This project is going to be a big success thanks to our Kuppersmith Project partners. We're a little behind this area. Ding, ding, ding.